Hey everybody, so I decided to take a look at Chopin's Nocturne number 2, Opus 9 in E flat major. So this is one of my all-time favorite pieces by Chopin, and it is widely considered to be one of his most famous and most difficult pieces. So the form of this piece is a rounded binary. It is A, B, A, B, A, and then there's a coda at the end. So each of these A and B sections are 4 bars each, except for the coda, which is of course longer and includes a cadenza. So first, I'm going to play you the 4-bar A section you can see here on screen, just so you can get a feel for what the piece sounds like. Okay, so now we are going to jump to the first B section here, as that is what I focused on for my microanalysis. So first, we are going to take a listen. Okay, so as you can see here, I marked the NCTs in red, and then I have the Roman numerals for all the chords in teal beneath the staff. So as you can see here, this section, section B, has a lot of unusual chord progressions and use of non-diatonic chords. So in this measure here, which is the second measure you see on the screen, we have a major 4 and then a minor 4 and then a major 1. So typically we would see a major 4 going to a major 1. That's very common, but instead Chopin decided to use some mode mixture and put a minor 4 in there. And then in the next bar, you see that we have some secondary functions of minor 2. But instead of resolving to a minor 2, we then go to some secondary functions of the 5 chord, which do eventually resolve to the 5 chord down here in this last measure on the screen. And then we have a secondary function of the Neapolitan, which does resolve to the Neapolitan. But once again, we have a secondary function of minor 2, which does not resolve to a minor 2, but instead going to a secondary function of 5, which then resolves to 5. So instead of resolutions and common cadences, we get a lot of suspension and anticipation from these non-resolving secondary functions and these broken up common chord progressions, which he also emphasizes here in the second bar with the repeated note of the E flat from the major 4 chord into the minor 4 chord. And so all of this helps the B section contrast with what you hear in the A section. So now we're going to move on to the macro analysis. So what I did here was I looked at the chromatic movements for each section in the piece. So the first time we have section A, I counted all of the times where Chopin moved by half step. So for that first time, we only have 5 chromatic movements, but the next time he plays section A, we actually have 18 chromatic movements. Then when we have section B for the first time, it does drop back down to 12, but in the very next section, it doubles up to 24. So we repeat that 12-24 pattern again until we reach the coda, which actually has 26 movements by half step. And for the coda, I did only count the movement of the 4-note repeating pattern of the cadenza only once. But as you can see here, each time that Chopin repeats the A section, there are many more chromatic movements. So not only does the tempo quicken, but he uses a more elaborate ornamentation. And so even though section B has less of these chromatic movements, if we look back here at section B and we see that there is a Neapolitan chord, and that is literally created by having a chromatic lowering of the second scale degree. So he sort of makes up for not having as many half step movements by using chords like that. And so the repeating and evolution of the A and B sections, once again, causes a lot of anticipation and suspense. But he holds off his resolution until the very end of the piece, as if, it's all leading up to something. So here I have the last few bars of the piece. As you can see here, in this first bar, in the top left, we ascend to the highest note of the piece with the con forza, and all of this is in the coda, of course. And so once we reach that highest note there of the G, we have these forceful octave motions back down. Then once again, he hits the G with an accent until we have a fortissimo here, another octave, and then another octave here, where he holds on the 5 chord. And so still, once again, he's holding off with the resolution. Then he holds off even more by implementing this very long cadenza here. And then finally, if you look down in the bottom right, you'll see that we finally get the resolution of the 1 chord. And so I'll let you listen to that. So overall, I think the real beauty of this piece not only comes from the really beautiful melodic line we have in the right hand and the bass line that continuously keeps pushing us forward, moving us through the piece, but I think it really comes from the anticipation and suspense he creates through the repetition of notes, through the chords he uses, through the movement between notes, in the melodic line that we looked at, and all of that gives us this feeling of leading up to something, and then it's a lot more satisfying when we finally get that big resolution at the very end. So thank you.